Welcome to International Women's Day, amplifying women's voices at the People's House. Can you feel the sisterhood? All right, today is a day that we celebrate all women and female identifying individuals. So I'd like to identify two of us right now. This is Eugenie Hero Jaffe, host of KRCL's Middays
and 12 o'clock Women Who Rock.
Woo! So coming up, you're gonna get a live edition of Women Who Rock, because Lucius is in the house. I'm Laura Jones. I am the host and producer of Radioactive on KRCL. I've seen lots of you come on this show. But it's time for some cold, hard facts, right? So according to the World Economic Forum's 2017 Global Gender Report, gender parity is 200 years away. That's right. So in the midst of Me Too and Time's Up, it's time we press for progress. And it isn't just men who need to be pressed. We've all got to do our part too. So when you find yourself saying why there ought to be a law, call your elected representatives and tell them what you want. Better yet, tell them if they can't or won't get it done, then you're ready to run for office. And you'll do the job. Now, if that's not your speed, find a candidate, find a board, find a commission, find a committee, and help. That's what you can do. Here's something to consider supporting, seeing as how Utah lawmakers didn't. SJR 9, a joint resolution ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment to the United States Constitution. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. The 19th Amendment affirmed a woman's right to vote. The year 1920. Maybe we can get ERA by 2020? Thanks for being here today. Stick around for Lucius. Do all you can in the community to ensure equality for all. Let's get our speakers going here. First up, Catherine Weller of the League of Women Voters of Utah, celebrating 98 years.
Well, hello there. You know, I first encountered the League way back in the 70s, when the League's voter guides were distributed in newspapers around election time. And when I was old enough to vote, I turned to the clear, concise information in those guides before I went to the polls, and I still do. Today, I'm proud to be co-president of the League and work with the intelligent, passionate women in fulfilling our missions. We are organized at 3 levels, like the government: local, state, and national, and we are active at all 3 levels. In Utah, we are more than 400 members strong throughout the state. Yes, we do. Our members volunteer for 3 kinds of service: voter services, like those voters' guides and registering people to vote; League studies, where we dig deep into issues; and League action, like our incredible Legislative Action Committee, who's been here all session long, observing, testifying, and reporting to you via KRCL. We are grassroots, broad-based, and nonpartisan. But nonpartisan does not mean apolitical. We believe in empowering voters and defending democracy. We envision a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. And we believe in the power of women to create a more perfect democracy. Rosie the Riveter said, We can do it, and the league says we will do it. And now, Jen Christensen of Better Days 2020.
When Seraph Young dropped her ballot into the box on February 14th, 1870, right here in Salt Lake City, Utah, she was the first woman in the modern nation to cast a ballot. It happened right here. On that anniversary, just a couple weeks ago, the legislature here passed a resolution to put a statue of the first woman to serve in a state senate, Martha Hughes Cannon. Dr. Martha Hughes Cannon. Back in Washington, D.C., in National Statuary Hall to represent Utah. A couple days later, another bill was passed to create a first to vote license plate. So by the end of this year, the Martha statue will have been started, and cars around this state will be celebrating the fact that Utah was the first place where women voted. These two bills recognize important parts of Utah's story, but they're part of a bigger story. Part of that story is a story of women who got together for better days. Those stories weave together, and they tell the story of how women's voices have been elevated since we've had the right to vote. Our ability to vote and have a voice in our communities has changed the history of the United States. We are so proud to recognize that and talk about it. Utah played a critical role in that women's rights movement, and most Utahns don't even know that story. Our passion at Better Days 2020 is to bring those stories forward, to popularize the past, to provide inspiration for the future. Our mission is to tell those stories, to let people know as we talk about the amazing achievements of these women, and let our children know and our friends and neighbors know as we tell those stories that they matter and they're important, and that women have a voice, they have a place, and they have a role to do in making Utah the kind of place that we all want to live. Better Days 2020 is proud to be part of that story, to create that space and to bring those voices forward and celebrate all the women in Utah who make a difference. And now I give you Leslie Henderson of the Utah Women of Color Council.
Hello. The Utah Women of Color Council is a nonpartisan 5014 grassroots womenist social advocacy group founded in April 2017. Utah Women of Color Council was created in the wake of local and national women's marches in an effort to better address issues to women of color in our respective communities. Our council is engaged in several projects to benefit communities of color and advance our group's goal of combating the ramifications of systemic racism, sexism, and economic disparity. Our three-point objectives is civic or engagement, community education, and legislative advocacy. We conducted voter registration throughout the community, and we will do so until we head into the midterms in November. So let us know if you need us. We recognize that nothing changes until we vote and engage. We facilitated literacy workshops in conjunction with Ally Bank to help women of color control their lives. We partnered with and continue to collaborate with Me4U. We engage in learning the legislative process. We have held a summit in January and the Day on the Hill in February. We currently engage in a scholarship to help people of color in our communities to be self-determined to meet their goals of education and achievements. We invite you to our next event in partnership with Pandos for the missing and indigenous women in our community, in the United States exactly, for sure, screening the documentary of Wilma Mankiller, first female chief of the Cherokee Nation, elected in 1985. Come learn how Wilma's Mankiller's legacy shapes present-day activism and hear the call to action. Don't forget, this is Wednesday, March 28th at 6 p.m. at the Marmalade Library. And next we have Meher Aisha of Global Chamber of Salt Lake.
Be the change you want to see. I don't want this day to happen. I want my daughter to have a future where she does not need a day to have her voice amplified to be heard. I want a future for her where her voice is clearly heard and respected implicitly. I am from India, where generations of women have the choices made for them. From the clothes we wear, to the homes we get married into, to the allowable list of careers. And that's just one form of oppression in one country. There are many forms of it swept under the rug in 190 others, except maybe for Iceland. This is where I tell you again how I want a different world for my daughter. A world that recognizes its strength in equality. It is a pipe dream. It should not be though, because although I'm asking for a future, equality should have been our status quo from the evolution of time. But I am a realist. I know to create a world like that, we need to embrace our differences. Today, this minute, between our genders, between our borders, between our color, between our religion, it is truly united only when we, as people of the world, for all intents and purposes, do not see or wear any labels. What I do know is that she will have a different future only when you and I, men and women of the world, roll our sleeves up, dissolve our egos, find empathy, and commit to change. It may start as small as maybe sharing household chores evenly, or building better communities for working women, or maybe creating women leadership programs like we do at Global Chamber. And to choose the right leaders for tomorrow and equipping them to be one. But everything starts with an action. So let's be the light we want to see for our daughters. Next up is Davina Smith of Utah Diné Bekeya.
Davina Smith Nshia. I'm originally from Miami Valley, Utah, and I currently work with Utah Diné Bekeya. Why I chose Utah Diné Bekeya is because it is in the heart of what is so important, and that is to protect Bears Ears. So what that means is over and over, I stand here as an Indigenous woman who has been here for many, many hundreds and thousands of years. And with that, I'm still continuing to fight, despite us being corralled on reservations, despite we are being numbered. We have to have our census numbers. Despite right now, as it's going, is Antiquities Act is going to be removed. And I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. But I also ask our state of Utah, because my umbilical cord is buried here in this state. I ask all of you to stand together, that we fight, that we are here, that we fight for our children, that we fight for the injustices that are happening, for our missing and murdered Indigenous women that is still going on to this day. Statistically, right now, more than 4 in 5 American Indian women have experienced violence, and more than 1 in 2 have experienced sexual violence. Forcible sexual assault and have reported domestic high rates of 10 times higher than the rest of the United States. These are things that we will still fight for. And to this day, as you can see these cutouts, these are still our missing women. These are the women that also have been found. So please stand together that we will be continuing to fight this effort, and so that our women and missing Indigenous women will be supported. Next, I'd like to introduce Sue Robbins of Utah Pride Center in Transgender Education. Thank you.
I am honored to be the first transgender individual to be the chair of the Utah Pride Center and have the opportunity to have a strong voice with transgender education advocates of Utah. The LGBT civil rights movement started at the Stonewall Inn in New York in 1969 and was led by transgender women of color and drag queens. Over the last few years, we have seen a rise in the visibility of transgender individuals, and with that, transgender women who have emerged strongly to have their voices heard on transgender rights and women's rights. Locally, we had Misty Snow, who ran for the U.S. Senate, and she presented powerful voice in her campaign, which gained national attention. Nationally, Sarah McBride became a spokesperson for the Human Rights Campaign and also became the first transgender individual who openly spoke at the National Political Convention. And just this fall, Danica Roem became the first open transgender individual to be elected to a state Congress, doing so in Virginia. Transgender women have a long history of stepping to the front and working to create change. We come together in solidarity with all women of differing intersectional identities. It is our time to bond in unity with love and show our strength. It is our time to be heard and create change. It is our time to raise our voices. It is our time. So at this time, I would like to introduce the next speaker, Ma Black, a Latinx community activist and advocate.
What an honor and a privilege to be here today. Gracias, KRCL. I don't take this moment for granted because today I have the opportunity to raise my voice, especially as an immigrant woman, because many of my immigrant sisters don't have this chance. I am truly grateful and honored to be able to be here today representing my community. Today, we celebrate you. We honor and acknowledge you, mothers, daughters, sisters, aunts, and all the women here and around the world. We celebrate the women living in war. We celebrate the women creating peace. We celebrate those who live in a democracy and fight for it. We celebrate the women in Venezuela. We celebrate the women in Syria. Today, we celebrate you and honor you, mothers and daughters. We celebrate the women that are no longer with us, the mothers that live in fear of being separated from their families, and the activists currently detained in ICE holdings and detention centers. We celebrate all the women living in the shadows, the ones that crossed the border but did not make it here. We celebrate the immigrant women, the refugee women, the asylum seekers. We celebrate the thousands of women waiting for a Clean Dream Act. Today, we celebrate you. It's an honor to introduce Mayra Sedano from Comunidades Unidas.
Muy buenas tardes, good afternoon. I want to start with a quote from Audre Lorde. When I use my strength in the service of my vision, it makes no difference whether or not I'm afraid. Si tengo o no tengo miedo. Compañeras y compañeros, sisters, the last few months have been very difficult for us. Very, very difficult for us. And I'm here with you to share a few words. I'm here to remind you that we are strong, that we're beautiful, that we're resilient, that we're leaders, that we are contributors. And unfortunately, we've been here before. But we will win. So sisters, let's continue the fight that our ancestors and many people before us began. Let's continue to fight racism, xenophobia, classism, sexism, and all the oppressive systems. Let's continue to advocate for change at the local and national level. But hey, don't forget to check your privileges, right? Because we don't want to be perpetuating the same systems that we're trying to reform. Let's continue to fight side by side until we gain justice for all. In our journey for change, let's not forget that we need to keep fighting to protect Mother Earth and our sacred lands. Let's not forget that love is love, that Black Lives Matter, that women's rights are human rights, that trans women's rights are women's rights and human rights, and that immigrants like myself and refugees are here to stay. Because we make our state and our nation better. I want to end with another quote. When we speak, we are afraid that our words will be heard, will not be heard or welcome. But when we're silent, we're still afraid. So it's better to speak. Hablemos. Let's be loud. Thank you. And now, let me introduce Sadie Ortiz and Carrie Galloway from Planned Parenthood.
I am a junior at Park City High School, and I will be the first in my family to graduate from high school and the first to attend college. As a Latina growing up in the United States, it has been hard to navigate the obstacles of racism, and not only that, but also the consistent hurdle jumps I have had to face over sexism. As a member of the younger generations, I'm here to empower youth. They are the future, their voices deserve to be heard, and we need to hear their voices. My voice deserves to be heard. I'm in the front line of the oppressors and their systems. I will be voting in the upcoming elections to make sure that the people in power will not oppress others as I have been, will not shut down voices as mine has been. I encourage my generation and future generations to stay engaged, to fight for change and to care. Let's not only fight for equality, but for equity as well. I stay engaged and active in my community as a member of Planned Parenthood's Teen Council, Bright Futures, and Latinos in Action, each contributing to the person I am today, an advocate and a politically charged teenager. I am a passionate female with a voice. The systems of power do not include minorities, people of color, the LGBT community, or women. We all deserve equal representation, right? Aren't we tired of seeing oppression, the systematic racism, the slurs? We all need to unite, fight, and speak for what we want and deserve. Thank you.
Hey, that's our future. Planned Parenthood's mission here in Utah is not to just make sure that you can have safe sex, responsible sex, maybe good sex. But we are also here to help the young leaders come forth. We need them for our organizations. We need them to make our laws. So, as we stand in the people's house, I want to go back to how Laura opened up. We need to make sure we are registered to vote. We need to make sure we know who we're voting for. We need to make sure we know what that person stands for. Or we could run for office. Now, a lot of stuff has been going on these past 45 days here in the People's House. And if the women and sisters who are here with us have inspired you, or if something the legislature done has discouraged you, you must speak out. We have learned from teens in Florida, we have learned from Me Too and Time Out that we have to speak our truth. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, Planned Parenthood is putting up an art installation for a Twitter fest. There are people in the audience handing out instructions. Tweet what you believe. You don't have to be here to be held. Your tweet will be projected. Join us, speak out, be inspired. Let the people upstairs know what you think. Marina Gomberg is now representing Equality Utah.
Thanks, Carrie, and thanks to KRCL. Friends, it's International Women's Day, and I'm feeling sexy. Can we get sensual for a minute? All right, those who are brave and willing, let's just picture ourselves in a romantic setting. A cabana overlooking the ocean at sunset. Some smooth jazz, nothing too Hillary shrill, is playing in the background. The lighting is soft, with our salaries dimmed to the perfect 75-ish%. You can hear the waves crash against the cliffs, much like our heads against the walls when men make policy decisions about our bodies. There's a delicious tray of chocolate-covered strawberries before us, with their sweet exterior begging to silence us with every bite. We've picked the perfect outfit, something that's innocent and modest with a hint of flirtation, although nothing too slutty. We don't want to be begging for the wrong thing. And we take a sip of that barrel-aged misogyny that has fermented perfectly after all these years, ready to distort our reality. Now take a long, deep breath and notice how you feel. Are you in the mood? 'Cause I'm in the mood for change. My body is ready for autonomy. My mind is ready to be taken seriously. My lips are ready to speak truth to power. And my heart is pounding with anticipation. So if sex sells, friends, then I believe that respect and equality for women is the most tantalizing fantasy in all of human history. And I say, as I give it that come hither look, let's make this dream into a reality. Who's with me? I'm honored to introduce Sarah Johnson, a member of the Disabled Rights Action Committee.
I'm a little excited right now. So it may seem to some of you out there that International Women's Day is a little tone deaf, maybe a little obsolete at these times of non-binary gender and gender roles. We're seeing a lot of progression towards gender fluidity, and this excites me greatly. But for now, I will continue to celebrate the fight for women's equality because we're not there yet. But what I am most fighting for is not women themselves, but the fact that anything deemed feminine or womanly is seen as a disadvantage, as something dirty that we don't want to be covered by. Whether we are female, trans or cis, whether we are male, trans or cis, or whether we are non-binary and don't necessarily feel that we are male or female, one thing remains true. We have a very narrow, acceptable behavior that we are allowed to behave in. And these prescribed behaviors are dangerous as a society, not only to women, but to our men out there. And men, I hope you are listening. My husband and I, when we were married, got a little gift from my mother. It was the Good Wife's Guide from 1950. It tells me what a good wife does, and I must be honest, we did actually take a number of these suggestions into account. As a woman born with a disability that left me unable to perform a number of household tasks, it was my husband that became the nurturer, the house cleaner, the meal preparer. He did this willingly, knowing that when I come home at the end of a long, long day of fighting for rights, I need those slippers waiting for me and a very stiff drink. But sadly, I know many, many women who still work all day and then are expected to take care of the kids. I sadly know other women that end up disabled because their husbands throw them against walls for not fulfilling their wifely duties. It is time we get over these prescribed roles and we all become the nurturer. We all figure out when it's time for you to pick up those womanly roles. And at the end of today, when I go and get into my bright orange Challenger and someone asks me, are you man enough to handle that car? My answer is no. But I'm sure as hell woman enough. And now, I will turn the mic back over to our wonderful hosts, Laura and Eugenie.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Are you registered to vote? Voterize, the League of Women Voters of Utah. There are folks registering to vote here in the Capitol today. So check them out. Voterize, thanks for coming. Do stick around for Planned Parenthood's thing later. And I know there are people gathering signatures for ballot initiatives. Stacey Stanford for Utah Decides is here. But now it's time for Women Who Rock.